Do you ever feel your passion for your craft waning, yet are powerless to stop it as the thing that once got you out of bed in the morning doesn't drive you anymore? And you start to wonder if holding on to who you were as a person and an artist is a futile effort? And then you see a pretty boy in a corset, and your inspiration comes back and hits you like a truck. Today on Glam Garbage, we are making the Black Swan corsets. In all seriousness, Black Swan is a song that means a lot to me. It's one of my absolute favorites, if not my favorite, off of Map of the Soul, and the performance that they did on James Corden is actually the first video that I saw that made me think, I'm gonna learn these guys' names. And as an artist, it just resonates a lot with me. Every Black Swan performance, in my mind, is breathtaking. They pour so much heart and soul into the song, and the choreography is just absolutely stunning. But what I love about the wardrobe for Black Swan is that it's a monotone color palette, but they use different fabric opacities and finishes and textures in a way that creates just gorgeous visuals and so much visual interest within that monochrome palette. And for the video, they used generally a mixture of feathers and sequins, and then the corsets with the different texture of the leather and the shine of the leather to add that interest. And it's a masterclass. I love it. Thank you, Big Hit stylists, for this. Thank you. The research process was highly professional. You'll need fake leather, a lining fabric, I used black cotton, a separating metal zipper in silver, some black thread, and I also used clips, bodyline tape, and pins. To make my pattern, I'm going to be draping it on my dress form, which I have padded out to my measurements. I've got bodyline tape or pattern making tape that I'm going to be using to tape the lines where I want them to be, and those are going to mark my seams. I also marked out where I wanted the boning channels to go. Even though I cut those as one with my pattern pieces, I didn't make them separate pieces. I'm gonna come to regret that later. Now I'm going to be taking muslin strips, placing them over so I can see my lines through them, pinning and cutting to find my pattern pieces. Alright, I've got all my muslin draped. It is in a nice pattern there. I'm going to take the pieces off the dress form and then trace them onto paper, and that's how you're going to get your flat pattern. When you're tracing your pattern pieces onto paper, it's important to remember to add seam allowance. When I was draping, I cut the pieces without that seam allowance, but now, as I'm tracing them onto paper, I'm adding 1/4 inch along the edges of each piece, all the way around, so top, bottom, and sides. You might be wondering why I kept all this footage of my cats in. And it's just because I really wanted to give you an accurate picture of my creative process, and these little monsters are here for every step. It's important to note that this is a corset in aesthetic only. You're not going to get any type of waist reduction out of this, and you shouldn't expect to. You'll notice that I drafted this pattern to my measurements, not to be smaller. So this isn't going to be a shaping garment, it's just for the look, it's just for the aesthetic. So that being said, let's talk bones. I am so deeply cool that I have 3 different types of boning on hand just in my house and ready to go, because I make my own Renaissance Festival costumes every year. This is sew-in boning from Joann's. It is a polyester / plastic boning that is about a 1/2 inch thick, and you can technically just sew right over it, so you don't have to worry about breaking your needle if you accidentally hit your bones. I don't tend to like this, and I actually don't know why I have it in my house. It's also sold in a coil, just like the rest of the boning at Joann's is, and I don't love that because you're gonna have to either iron it out or sew it with the curved side facing into your body so that it doesn't kind of make your corset go out. So that's one option. Oh, now you decide to leave? We also have zip ties. The zip ties is a classic DIY corset hack. You can clip off these little bits at the end, and what's great about these and the sew-in boning is that it's customizable to whatever length you're gonna need. Lastly, we have steel boning. This I actually got off Etsy. I will link where in the description box. And the problem with this is that it's not as customizable to the exact length unless you get sprung steel boning and you have clippers. I had to put some real muscle into getting this to be the length that I wanted, but I'm still going to use it just because it will give you the best structure. If you're going to be making any kind of waist reduction garment, if you're going to make a corset, or a historical pair of stays, I recommend this, but it's not necessary. Just a quick corset tangent, because I physically can't stop myself. I have worn many corsets in my day. I have worn 1880s corsets, Edwardian corsets, stays from the 1700s. I've worn a lot, and I have done a lot of activities in them, like farming, or dishes, or just existing, and it wasn't bad. The myth that everyone tight-laced and that corsets were bad for your health is perpetuated by the patriarchy. Wow, shocker. And also by period dramas who really didn't do their research. You're gonna wear a chemise under it. I was so mad when I saw on Bridgerton the title sequence of Bridgerton. Okay, a lot of things about Bridgerton made me mad, but the title sequence of Bridgerton where it shows her getting laced into her stays that have like left bloody marks across her back. No! Tangent done. I'm sorry. Before you cut into our actual fabric, it's always good to make a mock-up that you can use to make any adjustments that you might need. I have enough of this fake leather that I can mess up a little bit, so my mock-up is made out of my actual fabric. I don't recommend that. The actual garment is going to zip up the back, but I left the front open for my mock-up so that I could close it around myself and use it to make any adjustments that I need. And when you're making adjustments, it's easier if you make them inside out, because then you can clip the seams where they need to be. Alright. Mock-up. I'm pretty happy with this, honestly. So I'm gonna call it a night here for now. And tomorrow I will cut, even though this is the actual fabric, I sewed it with white so that I could see. So tomorrow I will cut and sew the actual garment and we'll be done. So it's a new day and I have got my lining and my fabric pieces all cut out, and I'm going to be sewing them together before I show you how to add the boning channels. I'm also going to be setting my stitch length to be a little bit shorter than the default, which is 2.4. I want it to be shorter because I noticed yesterday when I made the mock-up that you could see the threads as the corset was pulled taut. So I'm going to be setting it shorter so that it's going to be a little bit harder to see those stitches. It's going to be closer together. So I'm setting it to 1.6. That should be good. One of the easiest corners to cut when you're sewing is ironing your seams flat on the inside of the garment, and it is annoying, but it is one of the quickest ways to make your garment look more professional, so just do it. With this one, it is fake leather, which means it's plastic, so it'll melt when you're ironing it, so you're going to have to either iron it on the inside, or if you're ironing the seams flat, since you're going to be ironing the outside, you're going to need like a drop cloth to guard it. So I'm just going to use a leftover piece of muslin. I'm going to lay it over each seam as I go and iron them flat. If you're ironing something curved, it can be a little difficult. Clipping notches in helps. You're going to need to do that anyway. And there's also these things called hams. So you can see there's a inverted, concave curve on one side and a convex on the other. But if you don't have one of those, Chimmy works. What are you doing? Simon got a hold of the ham. I'm actually gonna need that. Here, let's trade. So I've now boned roughly half of the corset, and on camera looks fine, but in person I don't love it. So I unfortunately live by the motto, commit to the bit, and I've committed to this one. So I can't change it now, but I'm gonna rename this portion of the video to learn from my mistakes, watch how I do it, and find a better way. So the first thing that you're gonna have to do is stitch in the ditch of the seam that you've already made in between panels. Okay, so once you have top stitched through that seam you already made, you're going to take your boning right here. Could be your zip tie, it could be your piece of plastic boning. Like I said, I'm using steel. And then you're just gonna shove it up until you reach that seam that you've stitched down, and it can't go any further. So now the boning is shoved right up against here, and it is 1/4 inch boning. So that means I am going to top stitch a very careful line 1/2 inch from this seam. And there you have your boning channel. All nice and sewn in, your boning is secure, it's not going anywhere, it's not poking out the top, and that's how I did it. The reason that I don't like it is that I feel like the boning in the original corsets that they wear is just a little bit more three-dimensional. I think the channels may be attached on the outside, or they were separate pieces, like I said. So if I were to do this again, I would either make the channels separate or almost applique them on, though that wouldn't give it the same structure. So I just think that it could look cleaner if it wasn't top stitched. Even though the top stitching line is nice and straight. Like, I didn't do badly. I just think it's just the nature of the fake leather. So, you know, experiment.
Joann's didn't have the length zipper that I needed, so I ended up having to shorten mine, and honestly, it was like pulling teeth. Get it? Like zipper teeth. After getting it to the length that I needed, I used a lighter to melt the edges so that it wouldn't ravel. Then you sew the zipper down, right sides facing together. And you've got yourself a zipper, baby.
Why is this so hard to take pictures of? I wish I had a pair of wings. I should drink a Red Bull. Okay. Maybe time. Let's get on the floor. Draw me like one of your French girls. That's all I have for you this week. Thank you so much for watching this tutorial. I'm honestly not completely happy with this one. I think that I could do better, just maybe not today. But if you use this tutorial and make one of your own and maybe improve upon it, tag me. My social media is linked in the description box below, as well as all the materials used, and I'd really like to see what you make. And next time, I'll be back with a video actually inspired by TXT, so stick around and hit subscribe if you think that's something that you might like. Also, if you enjoyed seeing my cats, hit the like button. They deserve it.